Okay, and I thought having somebody closer to where you were or where you are, and next year in a few months, 8 months, you'll be graduating, and you'll be kind of doing what Adam has done. The actual CV, touting his skills, and so on. So, for the next hour or so, please have some questions for Adam, because I think he's got lots of relevant experience that you could really use at work.
Yeah, I recognise some faces from the last time I was here. I recognise you. You're in the studio, right? You were filming with a guitar. Yeah? It was only back in March, but alcohol numbs the memory cells, doesn't it? Let's go. So, I thought it was quite apt to title this lecture "The F Word," because it's one of those things that quite a lot of people end up doing once they finish a creative degree or some kind of following some kind of pathway into the creative industries. I presume we've probably got a mix of courses here. So who does TVT? And who does CGT? What's the other one? Media technology. Any that I've missed? You guys at the back?
About a third to half missing.
It's always the way. It's always the way. So that's good. I mean, like I said, freelancing is one of those where it's an opportunity and like an option for you guys to tout your skills that you gain through all of the modules that you do here at uni, and experiment with different production styles, things that you want to do, things that you want to try. There's never a kind of like set direction of your kind of pathway as soon as you leave, unless you go straight into a kind of job opportunity. But even then, you're quite likely to be thrown into the deep end, and being multi-skilled comes quite heavily into that. So there's a lot. The background pictures are all quite recent and relevant. So again, if you have any, I'm trying to make the visual references quite relevant to bits and pieces. So I left here I finished in 2013, graduated in 2014, and started a production company which is based in Epsom. And we make a variety of kind of visual content for local businesses, but also global businesses as well. And then covering lots of things like events. So right now, or this time last year, I was over in Miami covering something called the Provoke Conference. I have travelled to Amsterdam for the 6th or 7th time this year to go and cover IBC. Does anyone know or follow Cinema 5D, the online magazine? Or has heard of it? So I'm one of the contributors for that, and we go over and cover events and bits and pieces. I've found that since doing such a variety of modules and practicing a load of skills through the modules here at the uni, my kind of core focus gets narrower and narrower towards kind of, I guess, like my end goal of where I want to be. I'm only a few years older than you guys, so I still consider what I am doing as part of kind of like my journey or my pathway, and I haven't quite found that end destination yet. So I keep using the skills that you guys would be learning, whether that's editing in Premiere, motion graphics in After Effects. I kind of distanced myself from anything 3D and Maya and that kind of stuff. I can guarantee that all of you in here will have one module that you don't feel is your strongest. And what's lovely about being in a creative industry is that you can, if you feel like you can't do something, then you can pull on somebody else to help you with that. There are so many people out there that are multi-skilled or that focus in one area, whether that's character rigging, whether that's editing, like music videos, whether that's operating a camera. There are loads of different ways that you can involve people together. So I don't know how many of you saw this last time. Hopefully this is going to work. I thought it'd be quite relevant just to show you the showreel. This, I think you guys got a preview of this in March when I came before. That wasn't a finished version, so this is basically a show reel that covers a few of the bits and pieces that, as a company, we've worked on, which represents the local businesses that we produce videos for, the larger companies and events, and a bit of animation and motion graphics thrown in there as well. So.
This is Screen Systems.
Scout About year. There's only 155 days left to Scout About, so I hope you're counting down the days.
Always had the backing from the GLF Central team.
Anybody who comes to Shadows and Light wants to learn. They know that you never stop learning.
Skill set. It's also a way of connecting with our ancestors.
You need to get on this course, it is really good.
All of the work on there seems very old now. It's been a busy year. So I'm a freelance director of photography. I produce a lot of behind-the-scenes content. As you can see, a lot of that is video content mainly. I do get asked to do a lot of stuff that's just behind a camera, purely as like shoot something, go and edit it, and then deliver something, sometimes even within a very fast turnaround. So at the event that was titled Shadows and Light, which was in May, it's something that if you're interested in filmmaking, really something you should look to go to. It's a filmmaking workshop held down in Brighton, and that was my third year being there, covering all of the BTS content, and what we delivered for them was same-day edits. So it's a kind of 3-day event. The first day is like networking, drinks, and a party. There's then a day of kind of like lectures, but a little bit more involved. You're talking with industry professionals like Phil Arntz, who was there, who's worked on films like The Kingsman. He does a lot of slow motion filming, so he works with a company called Shotover. They put Arri Alexas on helicopters and fly them around London. Obviously Philip Bloom, Nino Leitner, those guys. And over that weekend we produced a video for each day. So quick turnaround editing is something that, now that content is accessible everywhere, so for example, one of you guys can literally just be filming this lecture and streaming it, the desire to have content pretty much immediately has grown dramatically. So there's a bit of a niche there, which is really, really nice. I've worked on a couple of features, and Ostrich, which is a kind of behind-the-scenes promo that involved a kind of short feature film, which was DOP'd by Phil Arntz. So I got the connection with Phil through Shadows and Light, and then Phil asked me to come and do a job. So that kind of, see the network and the pattern of connections with people there. So I just want to show you these two, purely to give you an idea of the kind of variety of things that you can be involved in. The first one is more cinematography, and the second one, the Beyond, which I'll show you later, is Really exciting new feature film, produced, directed, and all of the VFX was done by a guy called Haz Dalal. If you ever heard of Haz? No? He'd be great to come and do a guest lecture, but he's super busy. He's signed by Sony Pictures now, so he does a lot of high-end work.
Ostrich all started when my producers, James and Libby, took me to Merchant House, which was this really cool gin bar in Bank in London. The location struck me immediately. One of the first things I thought when I first walked in there was this would be a cool place for a political thriller to be shot.
I think one of the key things that Pat, I and our other producer Elizabeth talked about from the very beginning was honouring the style of really gritty British political intrigue, but inspired by an American aesthetic. We wanted to honour the references that Pat wanted for the story and for the visuals, and the way that Phil was going to create this political world of intrigue and tension and threat.
It's very much in the mould of those 70s paranoia thrillers, directed by Alan Pakula and shot by Gordon Willis. All the President's Men, Klute, The Parallax View, and we really wanted to bring that genre into the 21st century.
Patrick had a strong vision, obviously, for the look of the film.
Bottom of the frame should go any lower than her waist.
And going into that, my job as a director of photography is really to bring to life what the director wants to see.
As soon as we realised that there was this opportunity to get Takina involved, we realised that this was going to open up a style of filmmaking that was going to be accessible, but that was also going to create something that visually was completely and utterly outstanding.
A big selling point of the lenses as well, obviously, is that they cover VistaVision. They're big format lenses. So we shot on the Alexa 3.4K open gate on the XTs, and we capture a really big image, and we were able to use that big image circle that the Takinas have to capture as much information as possible.
And action. You know, you're dealing with very big, grand, complex subjects. We wanted to shoot it in a very classically composed way, really using the widescreen 2:3:9 aspect ratio to get that cinematic sense, to get that sense of place. The depth of the space behind the actors was something that was really important.
There's one scene where we actually used the bar mainly as a key light. You know, we backlighted with cheap little LED strips, and then we sort of just supplemented with the tube light, and all of a sudden you can reapproach the way you light your film, because your lenses allow you to open up. You know, we shot the whole thing at a T2, and all of a sudden we have a nicely lit image with a couple hundred watts. We were able to shoot very fast. You know, we sort of shot like a TV show, 2 cameras, over the shoulder coverage, and then a wide, and that was it. Patrick was pretty keen on, one of the big things that we always kind of kept going closer to the eye line and the edit, which makes it feel more intense when the characters talk to each other, because they're sort of talking closer to the audience.
Yeah, the key has been figuring out the rhythm. When you sound wide, when you move into a mid, when you want to really make that impact on a close-up.
We just essentially lit them with a top light, 2 tubes lit together. I think it worked quite well for this film, because you're not really sure about these characters, especially Pippa Thomas's sort of this slightly mysterious and threatening personality.
When it came to camera movement, we kind of saved it for the most dramatic moment in the film. And when there's this big reveal, we were really able to accentuate the drama and do something that really pumped up emotion at that point. It really adds another level of intensity to the drama.
We were really lucky to have the Quarry handle our data workflow from the very beginning, from on-set capture, conform to finish and delivery. This really meant that everyone was able to focus on telling the best story possible. Working with an image as big and ambitious as this meant there really was nowhere to hide. Our camera supplier, Focus24, introduced us to Shed, and this turned out to be an amazing collaboration. They really took Phil's work to the next level. It's a truly cinematic image.
This is a film that is about dense storytelling. It's about telling a big story in a small amount of time, and having the right people around you who are working at the absolute top of their game for the love of independent film was something that was amazing to see. We were, as producers, just incredibly grateful to get the people that we did on board.
It's been incredibly rewarding to take such a small nugget of an idea and to see it expand into something that I'm incredibly proud of. To have worked with the people that we've worked with, the actors, the crew, it's been a fantastic adventure.
So that was the behind the scenes of a film which will be released shortly called Ostrich. It was the let me just pause that. A short feature produced to promote the new Tokina VistaVision lenses. Does anyone have any questions about that shoot or anything like that? Yes.
When you were shooting inside the bar, did you just use the lights that they had available, or did you bring anything extra?
I was hoping that somebody was going to mention lighting, because the most important factor of shooting anything is not the camera that you use, it's not the amazing location that you have, it's how you handle light. That is what creates the beauty and the feeling and the atmosphere of the scene that you're shooting. For all of the BTS content, I was reliant solely on the light that the gaffer, which is the guy that sets the lights, was setting up, and that was determined on what Phil wanted for the scene. So the shot, which is just the bar with all the bottles behind, on the bar there was kind of level, so there's all the bottles and then another kind of little shelf there. And one thing that they did was use, just conventional LED little strip lights, wired them around behind the bottles, and then just lit them up. And then I think there was another top light behind them, which was kind of taped to the ceiling, so a bar like a traditional incandescent bar, just like that one. And that created essentially what appeared to be a natural light source created from the bar. And that created that kind of dark and mysterious look for the shot of the bar. For me, like I say, I was reliant on the lights that they were using. So it was a lot harder for me to actually work with some of the shots, because we're in that was shot in a basement. It's a gin bar in London near Bank. And there was no natural light. And as you could see from the content, it was very, very dimly lit as well. We're not talking using big HMIs or redheads or anything like you've got in the studio. So for that, I shot on the A7S II, A7S1, Canon C300. Obviously, the two Sony cameras perform very well in low light, but a lot of that content was shot at T2 or T1.5 for the BTS content because of the light situation. Obviously, that causes other problems in terms of depth of field, especially with the C300. How it handles noise and low light isn't fantastic. But with the post guys that we worked with on the BTS content, we used Neat Video noise reducer to kind of cut out some of that noise that was inherent in the colors. The next video, yes, yeah.
That's a really good point, because often you forget the importance of lighting. And I remember you used to be into Manfrotto's lighting.
I still am. Yeah, still am, yeah. I'm still one of their ambassadors, yeah.
Correct. And also for compositing, sensitivity to light is really fundamental as well. Not just knowing content, but when you're lighting for green screen, when you're filming for the VFX projects, many of you will be doing in a couple of weeks' time. Lighting is kind of crucial in measuring it, and so I'm glad you mentioned that. We'll touch upon it later.
Yeah, lighting is what makes something appear real, essentially. So if you were going to recreate this room in Maya and then composite, let's say you wanted to, every one of you here was in the room, and you wanted to composite one of your classmates into that seat where I was sitting earlier with that orange seat. And what you need to look at when you're actually creating these scenes that you want is how the natural lighting or the lighting in the environment will affect how these people will appear. So there's a nice blue kind of daylight, soft light coming in through the window. We've got a slightly yellowy green incandescent tint coming down from the ceiling. That will determine what their face looks like in terms of depth and shadow. So especially with green screens, one reason why some green screen doesn't look right, let's say you've got a person standing in front of a green screen and you're lighting them not only to light the green screen but also to illuminate them properly. and you're going to put them in like down by Kingston Riverside on a nice, really sunny day. So you need to be thinking about the actual environment that you're going to be putting that person into. That's how it will determine your lighting. Back when I was here, we were shooting on like basic HD cameras and all of that kind of stuff. So we didn't, I guess, technology's changed, can I say that? Technology has moved on quite a bit in comparison to when we were doing green screen stuff here. But those are the kind of things that you can be thinking about, especially with your VFX stuff. This, hopefully, will be a lot more exciting for you because it includes a lot of VFX. I sincerely encourage you to check out the rest of Haz's work, Haz Dalal. He has done a lot of VFX work in the industry for films, for television. This is the second film of his that I've worked on behind the camera. For this is just the trailer, but I was I think a unit like camera operator, unit director of photography for a couple of the scenes. This is his first feature. It will be released in January in the US. Actually, let me make sure that we got full res. We shot a lot of the scenes that were going to be CG'd in ProRes HQ 4444, which is a RAW codec. So why would you want to shoot in like a RAW codec if you're going to do VFX work? You want to tell me? Yeah, you need all of that data because of how much you're going to be manipulating that image afterwards. So the shots that have composited effects, VFX in, were all shot in that format and that resolution. It is all 4K as well because Haz wanted to be able to crop in post or rescale in post. But it'll be good if you have any questions about this trailer, then
do understand
do ask afterwards.
Nature of this mission and the legal non-disclosure agreements that you sign, which prohibit you from ever discussing this project to anyone outside of this room.
I understand.
And you understand the full nature of this program.
Yes, I'm fully aware.
This is light and cosmic matter entering and leaving. So what we're potentially looking at here is a wormhole. And we believe that this activity occurred at the same time as the strange dark orbs that have been appearing in our skies.
Talking about probably one of the most important things that has happened in space exploration. And I think we need to move forward on that. I think we need to move forward now.
We could be looking at first contact with intelligent life.
It's the possibility of something else out there for us.
It changes everything.
It's that simple notion which drives the Human 2.0 project.
We could not have been more wrong about all of this.
So that's the trailer for The Beyond. Anyone got any questions?
Is Haz like a company or
Haz Film is his company. Haz Dalal he is a physical person. He works for a lot of VFX houses as production VFX supervisors and stuff like that. And now more than ever, if a production company is going to do a shoot where they want some VFX, the VFX supervisor will now be on set to help actually work with these shots to actually make them doable in VFX. It's now becoming more prominent than ever that obviously VFX are coming into everything. Has worked on Poldark, and did a lot of sky replacement, building replacement, all of that kind of stuff at Poldark. BBC had him on set so that all of the production crew knew what to do to prepare the set as best as possible for VFX. Yes, Sunil.
That's another good point we're going to explore is the VFX module, because again, this segregation between CG, non-CG film and all that kind of disappears. I went on a 2-day skill set course a few months ago where they were talking about understanding how the sensors of the camera work, so you know what color depth you're capturing, so you can composite better and set the lights more appropriately for what you want.
Yep.
And then when you integrate the CG as well, you need to again, you know, work with the colors that go across different sensors, monitors, and so on. So the more you know about the other things that go on, the better. And like you said, on the set, even a DP would have knowledge about cameras more than just composing and things like that. So somebody like yourself, who's on a more general was on a more general Met course, kind of has a really breadth of knowledge, which is really, really useful.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think of an example. When I came into the studio and you guys were shooting your content, did you guys think about the lens that you were using when you were shooting that content? No. I mean, you still have your focal length. So general practice, if you're going to do anything with VFX, is in your 3D scene, you recreate a camera, right? You have a camera that is essentially put in the scene to record these images just as you would a physical camera in a space. One really good kind of thing to practice or to start having as a rule of thumb is to make note of the aperture, and the focal length, the ISO, any kind of metadata that you have from the camera and from the camera's lens, because if you're shooting a scene and it's kind of like a full body, you've got like a long wide shot, for example, and you're shooting that at 24 millimeters focal length at f2.8. You've got that person's now captured in the green screen. But if you then take that into Nuke or any kind of compositing software and you're recreating this scene, surely your camera that you use to shoot the person with should be the same as the camera that you use in your scene. So you can use all of that metadata that you get from the camera, the aperture, the focal length, the ISO, input that data into your virtual camera, and that allows you to create the same lens effects even when it comes down to distortion, whether you've got any vignetting or barrel distortion on the sides, like a kind of wide-angle fisheye lens. All of that information helps you actually compose that shot after in post and while you're compositing. And that's a lot of it. So what we had to do for some of the stuff on the Beyond was that first shot when when Jess she's the actor's name is kind of there in the suit. Jess was just standing there like this. I think she was her arms were kind of held up a bit like a puppet with a couple of bits of rope. And the shot pushes in. It's a tracking shot, which is an MCU, so it's kind of from the breast pocket upwards. So as the camera tracks in, we're kind of probably about a 40mm focal length as we're going in, as we're pushing in. And because we're moving forward and it's a shallow depth of field, we're also having to follow focus as well. What you do on set is you have, usually it's one of the, not the VFX supervisor, but one of the VFX crew will take measurements. So they'll measure from the sensor point, not the end of the lens, from the sensor to the focal point on the in point at the start of the move. And then at the end of the move, they'll also record the distance between the sensor and the focal point as well. They'll record the focal length, the aperture, all of that kind of stuff, because that scene that we saw there with Jess at the beginning, where are we? Yeah, that scene with Jess there in the beginning is complete. You have the characters in the background, and she's actually there, standing there in a real space. But that suit needs to appear real in that scene. And the only way for you to get true representation of that, to make it look real, like it is sat on her, like that. But actually, you've got to imagine that as a suit that's tracking in 3D space in real time. You've got to capture that camera information. That will really help, especially with camera movement and all of that kind of stuff. Also, it will make your shots appear more real because of the scenes that you're then going to composite them into, particularly for green screen. So that's like a good example. That was good fun filming that. Haz is a great friend of mine. And the two really important things about those two projects that I've worked on is that they're collaborative. Haz is a VFX producer. He knows what he wants. He has a storyboard, he has his script, and he knows what he wants it to look like. My job then, as like a director of photography, is to listen to what Haz wants, look at storyboards, listen to him saying, for that tracking shot, so we're going to move from a mid, a mid-wide shot, 35. So I'm already thinking in my head, okay, 35mm to 50mm. He wants the people in the background to be out of focus, so I'm thinking shallow depth of field. And then he said he wants it to go forward and push up. So I'm now imagining the move that I'll have to do, whether that's on a track or whether it's on a movie or a run-in, going forward and then tilting up. But then obviously you've got to think about the lighting and all of that kind of stuff that comes into it as well. Obviously, when you're shooting in something like ProRes HQ 4444 in an essentially a raw format, you can do a lot of post work in terms of positioning lights in that 3D space, etc., etc. Ostrich, again, completely collaborative piece. Phil brought me in to do all of the BTS work. Phil has worked with James, who was one of the producers, and Patrick, the director. Phil also brought in his gaffer and his other camera operators, Lorenzo. It's a collaborative industry that we all work in, or that you guys study in, and that you will go out and venture into. And those connections that you have with people are super important, because that's where your next job could come from. Because I want to try and bring it back to the F word. So, being your own boss versus security. So it's wonderful that you can be your own boss, but the downside to that is the security of work, and it does come down to money at the end of the day. You have freedom. So this is a picture of me outside the Hofburg, which is in Vienna. I was there, when was I there? March time, I think. When you're a freelancer, you have a lot of freedom. You can work in the areas of interest to you. So I work a lot in like the kind of camera world, broadcasting, a lot of stuff with like just camera tech, basically. I love my camera porn. But for you guys, it might be some kind of sport. It might be skateboarding. It might be music. You can choose and narrow and hone in your kind of area of interest that represents the content that you want to make. So we were shooting something with a guitar. Yeah, I know. That was a lot earlier last year, wasn't it? How did that go, by the way?
I'll show you later if you want to see.
Yeah, definitely.
It looks kind of bad.
Okay, well, there has to be. You have to cut through the shit to get to the gold. So, but if you're interested in music, then you can focus more on doing things in music. So there's a guy called James Tonkin. He produces the video content for live concerts. So he shot the Beyonce tour, he shot the Rolling Stones tour, all of that kind of stuff. And it's absolutely amazing work. And that's his kind of specialism. That's what he does. The same as some people will focus on documentaries, the same as the guys that are doing CGT and everything 3D would maybe focusing on animals or just environment building or just character rigging and all of that kind of stuff. You work when you want, with who you want. So, like, I choose the people that I work with because I know that they're really good at their job and that we work well together. We will bounce off of each other. So, if I want to, on the weekend, I was shooting, I was a DOP for a short, and me and my gaffer got on so well that when I wanted some lights to be put up above a kind of stairwell going down, all I said was that I want 2 LED 1x1s coming down, probably about 20%. We're looking at mid-tungsten daylight, so about 4,200K color temperature, and he rigged that in about 10 minutes, and then we were ready to get the shot and move on. So you work with people who you know, who you can bounce off with. The rate of pay. Rate of pay is good. You choose how much you want to be paid. And there are some kind of exceptions for that, where when you're starting out, trying to find work, sometimes you have to work for free, sometimes you get paid. Same with me. I try and do, if I'm going to do something, work for free, I kind of class that as what's called like a passion project. I'll do something because I want to, not because I need to pay the bills. But a lot of the other stuff in terms of rate of pay, that's a kind of gradual thing. There's a lot of other influences that affect your rate of pay, whether you own a camera, whether you have to pay for your compositing software, whether you have a home studio or a home editing suite, or you rent somewhere. I rented like an office space where I had my own studio, and that worked out really well until kind of something happened to the building, and then that had to go. But since then, I haven't bothered looking for one, because at the moment, the way that I'm working is actually pretty good. It also depends on your experience as well, and whether you have credits on things.
What sort of range would you say for pay that for what you do?
Well, I'm, as an example, I'm a member of a few like Facebook groups where people in television and film will post jobs. And I'm not going to tell you how much I get paid, because I think that sometimes sets some false expectations. But when you're starting out, you can expect to be paid nothing for the experience that you're going to get, up to probably maybe like 200 quid a day. And that's doing something that has the budget to have you there. You'll find that a lot of the times on smaller productions, they'll either offer you expenses and food, which is lovely, or they might be able to give you 100 quid for your time or for the use of your equipment and that kind of stuff. Once you kind of have a nice bit of background experience, you're starting to find out what you want to do. You start honing your skills into that. You might buy another camera. Because obviously, as soon as you start having kit, you've got to think about insurance, you've got to think about transport, you've got to think about storage, maintenance, all of that kind of stuff. Like, I have cameras just sitting on shelves, just gathering dust there, but I still have to pay for it on insurance. So that's another thing that you have to kind of think about. So how much money do I want to earn, but how many bills do I have to pay, or how much money do I want to have at the rest of the week or the month to either be able to put that towards your rent or buying a new camera or new lenses or all that kind of stuff. That can go up to £1,000 a day with kit. You're talking about somebody that has a lot of experience, somebody that has been doing it for a good number of years. But that's the kind of scope. Obviously, it takes hard work and dedication to get to that massive 4-figure sum at the end of a shooting day. And you're usually expected to have your own kit for that as well. Flexibility and variety. So like I said, like you can work when you want. Downside of working when you want is that it can be very unsociable hours. On Friday, I arrived at the location for filming at 8 o'clock at night. We started filming at 9 o'clock at night. We stopped filming at 4:30 in the morning. I finally went to bed at 6 o'clock in the morning. On Saturday night, we got to the location at 7 o'clock. We started filming at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock at night, and finished filming at 6 o'clock in the morning. So, and then another recent job that I've been doing, working with some poker companies. A lot of poker happens overnight. We would be at the location at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and wouldn't leave the casino until 5 o'clock in the morning. It's long working days. And actually BEC 2, which is the broadcast engineering something, it's a trade union, essentially. You become a member of it and it represents you. A lot of people, especially in broadcasting, are members of BEC 2. currently campaigning to have a time limit on the amount of time that you should be working, because quite a lot of the times, and one of my friends mentioned it recently, that she did a 16-hour shoot, spent 6 hours at home, and then was at another shoot the next day. So you think how that actually affects you. It affects how you can work. It affects your physical ability as well. So that's a slight downside. And then luck and opportunities. Opportunities will not be thrown at you when you leave. The magic of being a graduate has disappeared. You are no longer a valuable asset to society. You've got to find those opportunities. You've got to actually get that luck, because there's some kid out there that will be 17 years old that's been vlogging on YouTube for a year, has 50,000 subscribers. He is more likely to get a job in a television production company promoting content than you are. So, though, you've got to make your own luck and create your own opportunities, and that can come through exactly a good example of those films that I just showed you. Though that was my luck that I created by meeting Phil and by knowing Haz. That created an opportunity. Those got me IMDb credits. That will lead to more work. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions about the benefits / downsides of freelancing so far?
Hence the career show this afternoon, the info show next week,
Yep.
and the other one the following week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do go along.
For that trailer, The Beyond, by Haz, I met Haz in 2011. It's now 2017, so 6 years later, I'm still in touch with Haz, and that was only because Haz was talking at the Adobe stand at IBC. I went up to him afterwards and I said, look, I found what you showed really, really interesting. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions? I'm currently studying at Kingston Uni, do a lot of motion graphics with my video work. I found what you're talking about really inspiring. That has led to opportunities working with him. Okay, so this is the being kind of employed version of that. You have security. Number one point is security. You have an amount of money being paid into your bank account every month. You know you're going to get paid, and the amount of security that gives you is unbelievable, because you know what you can do, and you know that you might not be struggling at the end of the month. Downside of freelancing is that you could end up struggling at the end of the month, and it has happened to me. I had a dry spell, actually, from when I got back in IBC this year till about, which was mid-September to about mid-October, I had like nothing, zero, zilch work. So, and I had just spent like $4.5 grand on a new camera. So the bank account was looking a little bit low. I'm kind of going, what on earth am I going to do? So I was actively looking for those opportunities and that kind of stuff. You have a good, but just like any job, you have good prospects for career development. You might start when you're working in a VFX house as, I'm not going to say runner, because I heard a very sad story over the weekend that somebody that had been a runner for 6 years in a studio and was still a runner. The kind of thing about being a runner in like a TV studio or any kind of department or any kind of industry, VFX, studio work, anything like that, is that if you feel like you're not getting anywhere, try and move on from that. I recommend being a runner for productions or working or in a TV studio. If you can do it for 6 months to a year, it's a fantastic experience. You build up contacts, you get to know a lot of ins and outs of what's going on, just the same as you would in a VFX house. But then move on from that. Apply for other roles that are available in that company, because the people in the company know you now. You're not just like a student going to apply for a job as your first job. You've got a year's experience of working in that industry, in that kind of sector. Getting in the right job is quite hard, because you'll always find that you are here and you want to get the job that's here straight away. And there's a massive gap there of experience and knowledge. But I've got a kind of little chart thing that I'll show you later, which will help you go from that bottom step to that top step, and it takes time and patience. Career development is like, we're all creatives. We all love making things. We all love doing things. One of the main reasons why I did this course, and probably you did too, is because you're turning your hobby into your job. A lot of people ask me about what I do, and I just say I've turned my hobby into my job. And that's a lot of people in the creative industries is exactly the same. So you'll have that passion and that drive to develop your career, etc., whether that is in freelancing or in a paid role.
Actually, you are speaking from experience, having known Adam for a while. Because you actually worked as a runner briefly, I remember. Was it at the station or somewhere?
I was at the station. Is it the station? Yeah, I think it was the station. They've closed now. It was at the station. It's a post house. So they were doing a lot of post-production stuff for Renegade and Drum. That was TV production stuff. That was okay. It was a lot of making cups of teas and coffees and running around. But I got to check out some really cool post-production suites and some bass-light grading suites, and talk to editors and directors that were coming in because they had their shows being cut at the post house and that kind of stuff. Again, it's about connections.
It showed an early commitment to your career, not just going along and then, oh, I didn't get it, and then getting depressed, but actually, persisting. I think that's a fantastic quality.
Yeah.
From someone who's done it, so that's great.
Yeah, it's all about finding those opportunities, sticking with it for a little while, getting your fingers in pies. One really hard thing, though, is managing time, because being your own boss does come at a cost. I will quite happily edit a video from like 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the morning. And also, managing time also affects your rate of pay as well. If you're going to work a 12-hour day and get paid 200 quid, but they then ask you to arrive at the location an hour early and leave an hour later, you will actually then work in a 14-hour day. And that should affect how you're going to be paid. It could be an extra 20 quid an hour, could be an extra 200 quid. It all depends on how you're looking at it, but that time management factor is really, really important, because it is like balancing all of the things that you've got to do at uni. It's not easy. When you if you look at a to-do list, you've got this module, that module, that module, and you've got assignments due one day after the other, and a lot of it, although you probably don't think about it, is actually managing your time in an efficient way to get all of that stuff done. Quite often, we'll have multiple productions running at the same time. We'll have one production that is being planned, so it's in pre-production, one production that is ready to be shot or is in the shooting process, one production that is in post, so it's currently being edited, and then one production that is ready to be delivered to the client. And that circle kind of continues, and you'll have to be managing your time between each production that you work on, just like you manage your time for each module that you do here. Schedules, to-do lists, dedication. You've got to be dedicated to it, because if you're a freelancer, you can't just give up, because then you've got no food on the table. To-do lists are really helpful because they set out plain and simple targets, basically. Fingers in pies. I love that term. Be involved in being multi-skilled. I mentioned this and had a heavy influence on this the last time I was here. The more multi-skilled you are, the more valuable of an asset you are as well. That kind of plays into the experience realm of things. When I say multi-skilled, I don't mean that you have to know how to operate a camera, ingest footage, work in an editing software, do motion graphics, be a compositor, write your own scores, be a script writer and a director and a lighting engineer, and all of that kind of stuff. It's about choosing the right skills that you need to offer a valuable asset to a potential client or customer or crew. If you know how to if you're like a cameraman on a shoot, for example, and you know how to edit, while you're shooting, you will be thinking of how it's going to be put together in post. Just the same as I mentioned earlier with the VFX supervisor going on set to influence how the actual production runs so that the workflow is as smooth as possible for VFX. Does that make sense? You have the opportunity while you're here to know about different steps of the workflow and different areas of any kind of production. And if you want to go into character rigging, then you should look at VR and 3D kind of body capture kind of stuff, because that is where a lot of that industry is going to now. Instead of modeling someone, they'll actually have thousands of pictures taken of them and then built into a character. The kind of I can't say like the days of character rigging are gone, because they won't be. It's still it's necessary to have, but at the same time, technology is changing, and you need to be able to adapt to that. Going the extra mile. So yeah, like Sunil was saying, events and networking. It's so important to network, because you meet like-minded people in the industry that could provide you with work. At the end of the day, they're also like friends as well, and they can help you. I'm part of a couple of like communities, the filmmaking masterclass community, the Shadows and Light community, Global Media Collective, all of that kind of stuff, where people will ask for advice and you can give them advice. So like one of my friends has had a problem grading some footage that was shot in a log profile, so it's shot in S-Log3. However, because the dynamic range of the location and the lighting wasn't like HDR, the S-Log3, using S-Log3 to shoot in was completely redundant, because there was a lack of information there that he could pull out in post. So instead, he should have thought of how he can work with the actual scene at hand and work in the appropriate kind of format, codec, color profile, that kind of stuff. However, he then posted that problem onto a color grading forum network Facebook group kind of thing, and said, I'm having problems taking this image, which is shot in S-Log3, which is a log profile. Does anyone know what I'm talking about when I say log profile? Yeah. Which is a log profile into something that's usable. And one of the color grading experts, Ollie Kensington, came along, and he made him took him 20 seconds to make him a LUT that he could then use to actually pull back those colors, pull back the saturation, and make it into something that's usable. So you have even the people in this room, this is your kind of network, so to speak. Use other people's skills and knowledge to help you develop your skills. Yeah, BVEs in February, probably like for those that, yes, Sunil?
Another point about networking is most successful people tend to be ones who can build their own networks as well, not just be part of communities out there. I mean, if you take, and this has always gone on, you know, with or without digital technology. I wish people had told me when I was a year, take any one successful, Spielberg being the biggest name probably in film. He doesn't do everything himself. He can't. Really. He's got people and networks he's relying on. And it's the same with CG as well. There was a student at Aberystwyth when I was a student there. He was brilliant at computer science, but he could draw. And I met him, and we had some nice chats, and we forgot each other and bumped into each other at Plowden South one afternoon, after, a few years after we finished uni. And he was going off to the States. He said he was headhunted by a small company called Pixar. This was in the 80s, what we all know back then. And I said, oh, well, good luck. He finished his PhD in computer science, but we were working at Kingston. I was off to Quantel to do ThinkBox. And many years later, I was watching the Oscar ceremonies, and I couldn't believe it. I literally did fall off my seat. He went up on stage to collect an Oscar for, what was that name of the film? Jerry's Games, which was a short animation. And what he had done with Pixar was create his own little network, because they wouldn't finance it. He wrote his own script. And actually Pixar were using distributed networks of really clever guys in the UK who were writing some of the software for them. And he not only did the storyboard, but he was writing some of the software for the early modelling system that they were using. And he produced this 5-minute short. And who was the head of Apple back then? Steve Jobs.
Yeah, Steve Jobs started
He actually saw
Pixar.
this and thought, well, you know, this is great stuff, let's actually promote it. And somehow it got promoted, and it eventually won an Oscar. So, you know, networking is really important. I wish somebody had told me that earlier.
It is super important, and you can be engaged and kind of immerse yourself in these industries by, I mean, BVE is more of a kind of broadcast and video specific event that's held in February kind of March time over at the Excel. Escape Studios over in Hammersmith, they run a lot of events, and their courses for all of their VFX work are like, I can wholeheartedly recommend going and seeing their courses.
I'm glad you said that, because last year we had them come in for a whole day to talk to our students.
Oh, fantastic.
I know the guy who manages the VFX part of it, and I'm hoping he'll come and give a talk maybe before or after Christmas on the VFX module.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get one of these things for you, but that's why it's a bit disheartening when students don't turn up, make this effort time, you know. So tell your friends to turn up.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't do this kind of stuff, you're not going to get anywhere. If you don't put the effort in, then it's not going to happen. You can't expect it to be given to you on a plate. Yeah, Escape Studio is fantastic. I mean, the equivalent over in the States is the Nomon School of VFX. So if you wanted to really kind of study into VFX stuff, then out of here, Escape Studios, Nomon School of VFX, fantastic places to go to carry on learning. Rain Dance, if you're into more of the film side of stuff. Again, having these kind of core skills of directing, camera operating, producing, script writing are all of the things that are involved in this industry. Whether it's something that is created in 3D software or something that you shoot, everything comes into play here. So how do you get where you want to be? That background shot is what I was shooting. That's probably at about 4 a.m. on Friday night. In a swimming pool, so I did have to get in the water. So, how do you get where you want to be? Big question. Let's do some Q&A. What do you want to do?
Adventure? Or like...
I'm recording this as well. No, what do you want to do when you finish uni? What's the kind of place where you want to be?
So I'd probably like to work in like a TV studio.
Okay, and doing anything in particular? There's a lot of jobs in a TV studio. So camera work. Okay, you want to be like a camera operator or a CCU operator. Sure. There's, when you think of like working in a TV studio, you've got lighting engineers, sound engineers, you've got gaffers, runners, you have the producers and production assistants who make notes of time and all that kind of stuff. You have vision mixers, you have the directors, you've got a load of other stuff that comes into it. Let's go with one of you guys at the back. What do you want to do?
More in the filming and everything.
It can be any creative industry.
Yeah. More in the film industry, working with cameras and
so,
physical.
Okay, working with cameras, yeah. You chap in the Adidas hoodie. What do you want to do?
Probably compositing.
Okay. Anything in particular?
Probably 3D.
Okay. So, as in like objects and scenes, that kind of stuff. One of the ladies over here. We'll go for both of you. What do you want to do?
I want to do editing in the film industry.
Editing in film?
No, I haven't decided yet.
Haven't decided. You know, you don't actually have to like decide what you want to do, and a lot of people don't. They just kind of fall into something that they really, really enjoy. And it kind of goes from there. A lot of the big directors didn't know they were going to be in film at any point until they were just suddenly there. You two guys, considering I was watching your film.
Luke?
I want to work in the animation and VFX industry, more 3D
Okay.
sort of side of it.
Yeah.
I want to do video production, either behind the camera or as a director or producer.
Okay, interesting. So you've got a good mix, which is nice. However, out of all of you, how many of you have made a video or an animation or an object or anything like that outside of your uni modules? Good. How many of you collaborated with other people for that?
From uni or any people?
From uni, outside of uni? Brilliant. Those are the kind of things that will help you get to where you want to be, because you're actually narrowing in your ideas, your creativity, your skill sets into creating something cool. That'll help you. This is something that a TV producer drew for me on a piece of paper as we were on the DLR back from BVE 2 years ago. It's an amazing and very, very simple chart. So, where you are right now, student at Kingston University doing a course in TVT, media technology, CGT, etc., etc. And where you want to be. That could be, you want to be the world's best director doing advertising and commercials for shoes. It could be sci-fi character creation for the next Star Wars film. That essentially is the role that you want to go to. However, there is no way for you to go from there to there. Just as the same as there's no way for you to go from stage 2 to there, or from where you are right now to stage 3. Stage 2 and stage 3 are your years of study, creating media, networking, working with people, getting those opportunities, whether that's getting credits in TV shows or films, or games even. These are the things that you need to be thinking about when you will then end up at magical stage 4. So this is me, this is my pathway. And I still haven't got to where I want to be. That's what I said at the beginning. I'm still not doing what I really want to be doing, which is working in feature films, narrative, film productions, documentary work as a director of photography. I'm getting there because I am still this. I still do this. This is my job. This is what pays my bills. A freelance video producer / director producer. I've done this, worked on a short film with narrative production crews as camera operators or director of photography. That's my stage 2 is complete. I've ticked that box. So I know I'm there, and I'm nearly there. And it took a lot of patience and hard work to get to there. This is the next stage of producing my own narrative films. I have one where the script is currently being finished, but I also work on promotional content for some production companies that actually include this as well. One of them is producing a new promo kind of video / film about a new gimbal that is going to be released, and I want to write a narrative film to show what that product can do. Very similar to how that ostrich film worked for the Tokina cinema lenses. They created a short feature that promoted these lenses. So this is where I'm at the moment, and then, hopefully, before my beard gets down to the floor, I'll then be at this stage. But I don't know whether that will, the jump from stage 3 to the final stage, stage 4, whether that will be 1 month, whether that will be 6 months, whether that will be a year, whether that will be 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. You will notice that in the industry of film, all of the directors are kind of old, because it takes such a long time to get from there to there, and then to become established at that point. But it is doable. It takes a lot of time, takes patience, takes hard work, but if you were, so for example, you want to work in like a camera, in a TV studio with cameras. You're currently a student, Kingston University. What's your stage 2?
Runner, maybe.
Mm-hmm. And would you make your own video content at the same time?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Getting the experience as a camera operator is just as important as being a runner in a TV studio. So whether while you're a runner you ask to carry the cameras, or whether while you're in that environment you have chats with the camera operators that quite often have a lot of experience in what they're doing. I also would encourage you as much as possible to make your own content. That's the kind of stuff that will keep you ticking over while you're trying to get to the stages. What will be your stage 3? Camera assistant. You'll be a camera assistant. You'd work with the camera operator to help carry the cameras, set up the camera, change lenses when needed. At that stage, you'll probably then have more experience and knowledge about how these cameras work, how the image is processed, and also about telling a story as well. And then stage 4, you become the camera operator. Golden circle. But then, say like a year down the line and you think, being a camera operator is alright. However, my next stage from being a camera operator is maybe like in sport, for example, is I really, really love that slow motion stuff. All of those really slow motion shots of like footballers or swimming or anything that you see, is those are those kind of shit hot shots that you see in highlights reels and stuff. And you go, I want to do that, I want to work with slow-mo. You're back to stage 1 then. You're a camera operator, but how do you get to being a slow motion cameraman? I don't know, it could even be for wildlife. I was lucky to talk to one of the other Cinema 5D writers, Nick Divacek, who works in South Africa, and he does a lot of the super slow-mo work, so with phantom cameras for wildlife and documentaries in South Africa. So I was quizzing him about how we got to the kind of place where it was, and everyone goes through these 4 stages of development. You just don't think of it as 4 separate stages because you're so involved in it at the time. So who else wants to have a go at the 4 stages? It's good practice to actually think about all of this kind of stuff.
It's a fantastic exercise. I didn't know you were going to do this. I think it's really good.
Yeah, well, I wanted it to be a little bit more of a discussion than just me talking, because this kind of stuff will actually make you think about what you can do at uni and what you can do outside of uni to get to that point. So anyone else? You want to work as an editor for films? Yeah? Does that mean physical film or digital film? Okay. So in digital film, you're likely to be working in an array of systems, whether that is Avid or Premiere, FCP, etc., etc., etc. Knowledge of those systems is imperative, because you'll probably go from one place where it's an Avid system to Premiere, which is another system. Avid is very different to Premiere. Avid is a network-based, whereas Premiere is getting a lot better for that kind of work. So, student, Kingston University, likes editing. Stage 2, work with friends or work to produce the videos on the edit side. So it could be that you guys get together and you want to make, even if it's like a 1-minute short, it doesn't have to be 15 minutes, doesn't have to be anything amazing. You can make anything into like a little short film. So you get together with this guy over here and you think, yeah, let's make a movie, let's make something short. It could just be like a day in the life thing. It could be that you bumped into somebody in the corridor down there by the library and somebody spilled coffee over you, and now you've got to go around the rest of the day having coffee spilled over you. I don't know, it could be anything. You'll work together to develop the storyboard and the shots. You're thinking about how the story can be conveyed in the edit, which is just as important as how things are shot. Because if in the edit it doesn't come together, everything will fall apart. Because you're thinking of consistency in terms of shots. You're thinking of how the story moves from one section to the other. So that's kind of like your stage 2. And at the same time, you can start to, you're looking at these opportunities where it might be junior editor, or you might be, again, a runner in a post house or a post facility, or work experience, or you can go and talk to some of the production companies / post houses like The Mill or Drama or Renegade or any of those kind of post houses where, just thinking off the top of my head, Cactus, Tiger Aspect. You go onto Twitter, or like say you watch a TV program, at the end comes up with a logo of the production house and the post house. Follow them on Twitter, because they'll be posting jobs and opportunities. You might even get a 6-month or like 3-month kind of role as an intern, which is then your opening to this. You become the edit assistant or junior editor, working and helping the main editors. And then as your experience grows and you get credits, you're then here. Film editing or editing in general is very much a kind of credit based, as is if you wanted to do any of the higher roles in television, like a camera operator or anything in kind of like production. It's really awful, and I do hate it when I see job posts where it's like, we would like a junior editor or a camera assistant, minimum 2 years experience. Because how are you going to get those 2 years experience without doing the job? You have to have experience. So it annoys me that that's kind of the way that this industry works, but at the same time, your stage 3 is that 2 years of experience. And it's not going to come overnight either. I mean, I thought when I came out of uni I was going to be great. I can do a load of stuff and I can work really hard and I can create really cool content. I'm going to be sucked up like a sponge of people wanting me to make videos for them. And it wasn't like that at all. There's so much hard work and persistence goes into going through all of these 4 stages that will allow you to get to where you want to be. And that could be in 5 years' time. I mean, it's only been 3-4 years since I graduated, and I'm still really only here and here. So it's not something that will happen overnight. Purely that's part to do with like the journey that I decided to take in terms of freelancing and producing my own content and da-di-da-di-da. I could have maybe, if I thought about it slightly differently, gone from here as kind of making videos to here as a kind of runner / camera assistant on set, to there as a camera operator working with lights, and then to here as a director of photography. But where you are now and what you do when you come out of uni will heavily influence the different areas of approach and the different journey that you will take to eventually get to there. At the same time, what you do when you're here and what you do when you're here can change the output of what this one is. Because you might realise that actually if you're working on a kind of short film that's got a load of VFX in, and you were kind of like working in the edit and you thought actually compositing all of this stuff is really, really interesting, and making it look real in an environment that isn't real at all is amazing. I mean, look at how many films have been made just in the last year alone that have been so reliant on creating something out of nothing and putting it in a scene that doesn't really physically exist. That will change if you suddenly think about that there, to what the output is there. But that's a continual journey, and it will take you kind of as long as you need to get to that point. And there's no point in rushing, because then you'll never get to that point, because there's no from there to that. Yes, Sunil?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, just to throw extra examples in there. If you're interested in editing, do come and have a chat with me. Because I remember I was working at Plowden Cinema when they introduced first digital system. It was all analog with film, and we had editors next door cutting, splicing things together, and I was making the designs for the ads. And after about 3 years of this, I wanted to expand and do other things, and I was looking at other systems. And then compositing job came up, not as you know it nowadays. It was very different, but it was entailing what we might call compositing now, from digital to analog to digital. Did that for a few years, and then again, being kind of creative in nature, I moved on a bit, and I was made redundant all of a sudden at one place. And I had never thought of editing at all before, and because people knew me in the industry for certain areas, Avid approached me, and I didn't know they were actually going to develop a compositing system, one of the first node-based compositing systems. There was something called Flame, which was extremely expensive, about 500 to £1,000 an hour at its peak. And you couldn't get to that because it was like at the end of the journey where you had 10 years of experience. Anyway, Avid were developing on the sideline to the really good editing system. And because I had a background in technical as well as a creative, I was there for about a year and a half. And so I was working with the developers in one floor and customers on site and other places around London. And it was a really awful system because it was really user-unfriendly, Unix-based.
Avid still is now.
And it was an amazing compositor. There are only about 7 or 10 of these in the world. And it didn't take off, and they cut it after 2 years. But I found myself doing multitasking work, right? And on the side, there was all these editing systems that I could just use from Avid. And once I left Avid, there was a lot more doors open for editing if I wanted to go down that way. But I didn't at the time, but I spent 2 years learning a little bit about it. So be open-minded, and it might be you go from one step to another, but because of the nature of media nowadays and your own growing interest as you move, as you've known from the past 3 years, yeah, how you've changed. If I talk to you, if you remember your first year here to now, I'm sure you have perhaps slightly different ideas about how the media works and what you want to do. Okay? So reflect on the past, where you are now, hence the assignment to get you to commit to one area, explore it in depth with a CV, doing professional practice module, and research the industries, go to the events, CV, interview, practice, which we can do in an hour or so. And all that is getting you to be active, to find your own feet, really. Okay? So I hope the assignments make sense to you. They're not just abstract. And be open to change. That's what I see here. Adam sort of surviving and prospering. He's not sort of moaning and groaning that I'm not a film editor, I'm not a filmmaker yet. That's going to come in time. And I have no doubt he'll get there because he's so dedicated.
You just reminded me of the module where you had to edit a video of a Peugeot 206 driving down a hill in Spain or something that I think you shot when you were on holiday or something like that.
Actually, Sam Selleck donated that when he was experimenting as a student.
God, you're still using Sam's work. Wow, that was old. That was
deliberately awful. So you have to kind of.
That was old when I was here.
Yes. But no, we've got a new material.
Good. But that was old when I was here. But just to give you an example, that was kind of like my first probably proper taste of using Premiere, because before I was here at uni in my media studies course at A-level, I was using FCP7. So my first taste of using Premiere, well, I used kind of After Effects in that time because I had a really heavy interest in After Effects. Kind of over that summer between finishing your A-levels and going to uni, I spent a lot of time kind of fiddling and playing with software. That Peugeot Resentfully project, so like that was the first thing that I did in Premiere. My company this year has been created video content and was editing content for the United Nations. That kind of shows the development that can happen. We are talking 3.5 years after kind of finishing, but that's still that's still something quite big. Yeah.
That's great. And another example for anyone who wants to be an editor, I keep in touch with past students. There's a lady called Eva. She's working at the BBC as an editor.
Brilliant. I'll come on to a point about. There we go. Yeah, forgot where I was then. I'll come out to a point about keeping in touch with people and stuff like that in a minute. But yeah, what's next? So you guys, this is the beginning of the end, right? You guys are in your final year? Yeah, so it is the beginning of the end. The apocalypse is nigh. It was a bit like the other week when the sky all went Mad Max and you can just feel the apocalypse coming. What's next? Be proactive. I can't stress that enough. Be proactive. Make content, whether it is 10 seconds, 10 minutes. You have resources here. Use them. Make content that you see on Instagram. Instagram and Snapchat are the biggest growing platforms for promoting products through video content.
It is true, actually. My friend, he uploads his portfolio. He's a photographer. He just uses Instagram as his portfolio source.
Yeah, it's the biggest growing source for it. Get in with brands and companies. It's like I said about following companies on Twitter and stuff like that. I do that because I'm interested in the industry in which we work in. At the same time, you can think, like, one of my, like, it's going to sound really weird, but like, I've met Rick Stein, the chef, once, with a production company, Denham's, who makes his TV programs. They used to work with a guy called Keith Floyd. You know, yeah, Keith Floyd, guy that always used to enjoy a drink while he was cooking. Denham's made his content. He made his TV shows for the BBC. Denham's made Rick Stein's content for the BBC. And I would love to work with Denham's as a camera operator. So I follow them on Twitter and I look out for any opportunities that they have. And I will quite often have little conversations on Twitter or Facebook or whatever with brands and companies, just chatting with them. Because at the end of the day, you kind of do this course, or you're going to do the job for a reason. Not just because you want to earn money, it's because you have an interest in it. And a lot of these companies are going to be doing something unique or something special or something that you want to be involved in. Experiment in different areas, like I mentioned about kind of being multi-skilled. If you want to be a camera operator, know how to edit, because the footage that you're going to make is going to go into the edit. You need to know how the story is going to be told. Just the same as motion graphics and compositing. Are we close to finishing?
Yeah.
Okay.
3-4 minutes.
I think.
Because unfortunately I've got to do this.
That's all right.
Sorry.
That's all right. Nearly at the end. Put yourself out there. Again, it goes into the networking, going to events, grow your own network of people. What's quite interesting is that I think after I did my first lecture here in March, I put my email address up, and I know Sunil put my contact details on there. I think I maybe heard from 1 or 2 students after I did the lecture, and I think like
that was the first year group, though. Yeah.
Was that first year group?
Oh,
okay.
This is third year.
Well, fair enough.
Hopefully you get more contact.
Yeah, but you can, like, the guest lecturers and all the people that come in to do this, like, the reason why I've come in to talk to you about it is because although you study like a load of the nice funky creative things to do it, when you actually finish uni, you're there out in the big wide world, got to kind of live for the day and try and find your way. And I want to try and give you that advice, so you can just drop people emails and stuff like that. Don't be scared and worried to do that. Learn about money, marketing and resources. If you want to be a camera operator, get a camera. Learn about the resources that you're going to use. I can't stress that enough, because if you've got a camera, then you can go and make your own content. You can charge more of your day rate. If the higher kind of, I can't really say the higher end camera that you get gets you better jobs, but sometimes you will be hired because of the camera that you own. I know production companies that will only hire people that have a C300 Mark II or an FS7. If you don't have anything below that, they don't want to know you. You could be the best videographer in the world. Yes?
What one, sorry?
C3, what do you mean? What cameras?
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
Canon C300 Mark II and Sony FS7. Yeah. So you're looking at spending between 7 and 10 grand on a camera alone. Learn about money, because if you're a freelancer, you need to be able to manage money well. Like I said earlier, you could end up with no food on the table. That's the downside of not having a salary. Marketing, because you need to be able to market yourself. Social media platforms are out there for that entire reason. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Movidium, Mandy, Talent Manager, all of the, I think it's Talent Manager, or TV crew stuff. All of those resources are out there for you to kind of advertise yourself, and so that companies will actually know that you exist. Otherwise, how do they know that you are available to go and do the job for them? We've had the discussion and questions. The two big, well, if there are any kind of burning questions, you can always ask me after. But where are you trying to go, and what do you want to achieve? The two most important questions for you right now and to start thinking about, because what you do in your final year project or professional practice project, whatever it's called these days, that should be answering part of these questions. If you want to make videos, then make your professional practice final year project about that. If you want to be an editor, focus on editing. And when I say that, you can write you could write a script or work with a camera operator, but your focus should purely be on that editing, and then that way you can hone in those skills. Advice and opportunities. Always looking for people to get hands-on with stuff. Like I said, I do a lot of here, there, and everywhere bits and pieces. It's my Twitter handle, Plowman91. My Instagram handle, AdamVideoMan. I set my Twitter up like years and years and years ago, but because I've got a few followers, I don't want to change my handle. And then the website's there as well. Just get in touch, give me an email, etc., etc. Any really burning questions? You can always talk to me after. Yeah. It is a Zoom H1, yeah. Good. And on that note, thank you very much, everyone. Good luck with the rest of your year.
That was smashing. I thought that was really down-to-earth advice from somebody who hasn't graduated that long ago. Because we have got other speakers who are a bit older, and sometimes it gets a bit more distant, so thanks very much.